I think when a lot of people watch hitters, they see the hips moving around and then they get focused on the hip turning. And when that happens, there's a lot of instability and movement of the upper body too, pulling us off the line. And what actually, when we watch it more closely, what actually happens when we land, the hips actually are decelerating at this point. They're not doing anything actively. So we're not trying to flip the hips and get everything out, because that just pulls everything off the line. But we kind of land and decelerate the hips, and then we're able to continue rotation down the line. And that's a big thing that's missed. Now, the hips certainly do continue to rotate out, but that's all just a matter of being on the line for a long time.
What I like is when you see that, is probably predominantly, I'd say 90% of kids and young hitters are spinning. And any move that causes spin obviously transfers that same spin right up the shoulders, between them going off plane. And, at a certain age I run into things, but, I've asked me before, well, are you linear rotation? I said, I'm both. You can't say one or the other. What happens when you do that, you realize it's the back hip moving in sequence on that line, which allows me to have even more line. But that back hip, the minute you open that front side, that back hip's dead. There's nothing there. And we talk about little body moves that completely take that whole posterior chain and shut it down. It's the same thing we talked about anterior pelvic tilt, that people talk about trying to hinge, realize once I do this, my legs are gone.
Yeah.
So what I have to be able to do, I can make moves, but you see as I move, I'm kind of maintaining like a bend in my spine and my shin, because that keeps my body working. But the minute I change things, this shuts down.
I think it directly relates to front shoulder and front hip, and I think that's something people are looking for nowadays, is watching the front shoulder, front hip separation. And the second you see that, I'm immediately getting pulled off the ball, and my lead arm wants to go with me. The second my front hip actually stays in, my front side works stronger, and everything can hold that line naturally.
And that's where I think honestly, that's where I think that the misinterpretation comes, because when you land athletically, you might land with this separated, but it doesn't separate more. It just now this is stable and it's just decelerating, and now I can stay on the line.
Right.
This is, you can see how this hasn't moved.
And what we see this actually is degeneration.
And that's actually what finishes the hips.
Yeah. Although the rotation is actually in up the femur here, it's the action of this coming through that allows that rotation here, but it's late.
And it kind of just follows, right?
And it's not the driving force.
Right. But then you look at, we talked about bracing. We talked about that kid that did 3 years online lessons and at a formative age, and a year later his body is not even close to where it should be. But again, that brace, once you brace, everything goes up. Losing legs, I lose everything here, and it just becomes an upper body swing, which really hits in a zone that's really small, and it's going to compromise his ability to continue competing unless we can get it right.
Yeah, at that point you can only go up or out.
And that's a big key, because it's not stopping. Bracing would be stopping. I think more decelerating.
Correct.
Means slowing down, and I'm actually not continuing to accelerate the hips. I'm allowing them to slow down.
But here's the thing, is hear all these people, are using it here, that, how important this stuff is. It's like they discovered it and realized, come on guys. It's what athletic bodies do. So now they're pushing deceleration, and now if you push deceleration on the kids, it's like overcomplicating it. Right? Like, put them in a good position and let them start feeling things, and guess what? All that happens. But if they consciously try to decelerate their hip,
Right.
it's a bad thing. But again, put them in an environment where they can learn to see what it is, to kind of contain that line and make things happen. The body's going to self-organize pretty well. And like I said, 5 guys in here, 5 different ways to move, 5 different body types, whatever the case may be. But if you self-organize to the goal at hand, is that I want as long as I can, I don't want to spin off balls. Once you think about it, you go, man, that's the worst feeling in the world. And so all these guys are saying, rotate the hip, get that front hip clear, get open, and realize the minute you do that, realize that was always the worst feeling in the world, because all you're doing is, playing catch, rollovers with the third baseman and shortstop. And you see pitches that you can get, and suddenly you can't get them because you're already open and you're missing your plane, and then you're susceptible to at least half of the plate, you're susceptible to any spin, and then it's like, I can't hit that. You realize, once you understand I can stay through that, then it's like, bring it on.
Yeah, and I think what we're really getting at is get to a good, ready launch position, however you want to talk about it. And then from there, stay on the line. And if you do that, and you're not, because we don't want to focus on accelerating the hips out of there. We want to be stable from the ready position and stay on the line. And that will in turn, it should athletically keep that stable overhead, allow you to stay through.
And one of the chads were talking about the kick drill, and people don't understand why we're doing that to wake up the backside, because it hasn't worked. When anybody's had any pedestal, straight leg, front side movement, their backside does not know how to work. It doesn't work, so it's foreign. So the kick drill forces them to be able to do this, and you'll find some of your players won't be able to do that at first. Because if I rotate here, this is pretty much just done. So it's a matter of just kind of getting the body used to a different move in order to get the movement pattern downstream a lot better. But you're gonna find that a lot of those guys, I think the biggest problem I see obviously is going to be related to what happens here. And that is a direct result of what happens here. That also as we go down, what do the kids look like that are gonna spin?
Wide open.
Okay, we talked, Mike Young, man, great athlete, was able to survive that. Average person opens up, where's my hip already? I'm already so far off plane, there's no way I can really have a long line because I have to follow that line.
Yeah.
So if the hips get there, the shoulder's gonna be there, and that's where you see these guys taking these hacks, getting to a ball at one point in time, and then suddenly you see the swing coming off plane. And yeah, maybe they can get that in a practice environment, but it's not gonna happen in a game. It's not gonna be consistent, and somewhere your career's coming to an end.
Yeah, no adjustability at all there.
Yeah.
It's
So
like when
again,
we talked about Beltray, we did the same thing, staying on the curveball that he would hit out. Not necessarily going to the knee is always the best move, but he was able to keep his plane without flying his front shoulder, keeping his hips in line and everything working pretty smoothly.
and then you get people that start teaching kids to just drop your knee on every pitch, and it's like, what are we trying to do? And then you'd see, like I said, the pre-Valiant when I was like 20, 25 years ago, everybody was squashing bugs. You know, it's like, no, please don't do that. When we talk about anchors, leaving that foot down, eventually, even if I've got a good swing off, I'm gonna lose plane. And I want all of it if I can, because that little bit of release makes my body feel a lot better going through, gives me that little bit extra bit to really stick through the ball.
I love it.